So what do you tell parents to say, where do I even start?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing to say, and I say this in our parent presentations, if I were to have created a toolkit with all of these platforms and the guides to them and give them to you today, they would be outdated.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do is we say we have to look at very tangible, specific guidelines that would be across platforms that speak to the behaviors that we see from these predatory people and from exploitation.
Okay, so what to watch out for?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So one of those things that we really emphasize with parents is having a conversation with your child about what healthy friends and followers look like. So rather than pointing to stranger danger, because nobody online is a stranger anymore, we use the term friends and followers, and we look at, well, what does it look like for somebody online to be unhealthy towards you, to not respect your consent, to infringe on your boundaries, to act predatory, and what are those red flags? So one of them being that if you're talking to a friend or a follower on one platform and they ask for you to add them on a different one, that's a huge red flag. We call that switching platforms.
Why?
So great question. So the reason being is typically we see a request to switch to a platform that is more secure and gives that predatory person information without them having to ask for it. So if we're on Instagram and I want a picture of you, I have to ask you for it. But if I say add me on Snapchat, where the whole point of the platform is image sharing, I don't have to ask you for that photo. So a lot of times it's a switch to a different platform that provides more security, more information, and it's not typical healthy friend and follower behavior.
Okay.
So that's definitely one of the key ones that we speak to.
Wow. Now you also said nobody's a stranger online anymore. Why?
Yeah. So, if you think about somebody wanting to add you on Facebook, what is that person called? A friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to look at your content on Instagram.
Whether you know them or not in real life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So completely regardless of what your relationship is, you are going to use the terminology friend or follower.
Yeah.
And so that really takes away this concept of stranger danger.
Right.
Yeah, and puts us into this situation where we have to use relatable language, and it really speaks to the behaviors of predatory behaviors rather than the stereotype image of this creepy, scary person that's lurking in the basement.
Okay. Yeah, we have to change, almost have to change the way we used to approach these topics. Using the term stranger danger was so endemic to how we talk to our kids about public safety. And what are some other red flags that parents can watch out for?
Absolutely. So talking to your kids about there's nothing typical or healthy of somebody offering you things online. So if you are looking for a job, you would have to go on a platform and apply and post your resume. If somebody's reaching out to you on social media and saying, hey, I have a way that you can make quick, easy cash, that's a red flag. Oh. So any kind of gifting, whether that's Roblox tokens or TikTok rewards or money for your photos or modeling gigs, if someone reaches out to you offering that, definitely something that you want to check in with a parent or an adult about. That's a red flag too.
Oh my God. How do I start this conversation with my child?
So many of my friends have asked this question to me because they have kids who are 8, 9 years old and they're now, being exposed to technology. And so the question becomes, how do I even start the conversation? And I would say defining the internet. At the most basic, and regardless of how old your child is, maybe you have a 17-year-old teen, having the conversation of what is the internet and who's on it. There are 5 billion people that use the internet. Are they all the same? Do they all use the internet for the same needs that we do? Do they have the same intentions? And then from there branching into, really putting our kids in the seat of leadership that I want to know, because there are so many billions of people online and some of them are out there looking to harm. I want to know, what do you think would indicate to you that somebody online is dangerous? And having that conversation where we put them in the seat of, you tell me what red flags you would look out for. Yeah. And now this opens up the opportunity for me to tell you if somebody is love bombing you right away and providing you compliments.
Love bombing, so showering.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, within a few minutes of connecting with somebody. If it starts to get sexual within a day of connecting with somebody, if they're switching platforms, if they're wanting you to keep secrets, if they're offering you things, that these are also predatory and unhealthy behaviors. And so it really opens up that space of, what would you look out for online? And then also the last piece, and I think this is the piece that parents really miss, is asking our kids and also providing them with 3 different alternatives of how to get out of situations online.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's something that we miss is we always talk about what signs to look out for, but we also have to give the exit strategy for our kids. And it can't just be one form of exiting. So in any situation where we're talking about giving consent, there are different ways that people say no. And we have to acknowledge what those different ways would look like online and not just speak to, I want you to block somebody or, I want you to come tell me right away. Give them 3 different options and alternatives so that they have this toolkit of strategies that they can implement when you're not monitoring them.
I'm going to ask you about those alternatives in a moment, but I want to put out our phone numbers as well. If you have any questions at all about, what are the red flags to watch out for, how to approach this conversation with your child, what do you need to know to protect your child from the possibility of online abuse or online exploitation? It is rising in record numbers. According to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, there are record numbers of online victimization online, and their cyber tip line has received nearly 6,000 reports of online extortion. So how do you avoid this? How can you protect your child? What is the information you would like to know? What do you want to know about what the federal government, what the provincial government has announced, and how that applies to you? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. By email, we're at bctoday@cbc.ca. And you can also text us at 236-330-2623. My guest is Tiana Sharifi, CEO of the Exploitation Education Institute. And so, okay, it's not just about you have to block them immediately. Come to me. What are the ways that kids might feel more comfortable in rejecting someone or saying no?
Absolutely. So I think that first of all, it's asking them that question. We do this when we go and we give presentations on consent and even consent digitally, we have the kids engage in a practice where we ask them to tell us no without using that word. And whatever ways they come up with is typically their more natural way of saying no. So it's putting out to the kid, what ways would you be comfortable with? Even if it comes down to you're talking to somebody that you like romantically, or you're talking to a friend, how would you feel comfortable saying no to them in that situation? Because at the end of the day, again, the people they're interacting with are friends and followers.
Regardless. And it's just giving them that agency, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
In any situation.
Absolutely. And it really puts them in that position of understanding that I take on the responsibility and I don't have control over who reaches out to me, but I have control over how I respond to it. So some things that we tell the kids is, you could blame it on your parents. My parents monitor my content. They're looking at my phone, I'm not allowed to, those kind of things. And of course, if somebody then is continuing to pressure, well, that's them crossing your boundaries and that's unhealthy. Blocking is fine. Of course, you don't owe anybody anything ever, and a no is a full sentence. But even saying things like, maybe we'll talk about this later. I have to go right now. And just giving some space for yourself, allowing some space for yourself to come up with ways that you feel comfortable. And at the very end of the day, too, thinking about what different number of adults are in your life that you trust. And maybe it's your parent, but maybe it's a teacher. Maybe it's an aunt. Maybe it's a youth worker or a counselor. And knowing that that's somebody that you can also go to and say, hey, I just got this message. I'm not sure how to respond.
Okay. Establish those early on. We have a text from Terry and Souk wanting to know more about school awareness programs that teach students and parents how to protect young people from online sexual predators. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually provide a presentation called Cyber Safe from Exploitation, and our presentations are supported by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Public Safety. And so we provide presentations from grade 6 all the way to 12, talking about the psychology and the root causes that would lead to exploitation. We do it in a very lighthearted, engaging way with humor. And the one thing I actually do want to share, it's very exciting, is that we have partnered with Ally Global Foundation to create the first ever Canada-wide free interactive website with over 90 pieces of educational content that's animated for kids from grade 3 all the way to 12. and it's called the Prevention Project. It's going to be on a website called thepreventionproject.ca. It will be released on March 4th, so it will be freely accessible. I can't speak, too much about it, but I will say that we have animated videos that actually give parents and teachers the tools of how to have these conversations in a lighthearted way and give that guidance as well.
We're looking at a bit of a promotion
Yes.
for it right now. And it does look, very child friendly. There's animation
Yes.
and people speaking and kids speaking, in fact, and yourself as well.
Yes.
Thepreventionproject.ca.
Thepreventionproject.ca.
Can
yes.
they also catch that by going to your own website,
Yes.
exploitationeducation.org?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
exploitationeducation.org. Let me just we just have a few minutes left here with Tiana Sharifi of the Exploitation Education Institute. So do get your question in. If you want to know just what are the conversation starters or the questions you need to be asking your child, what you need to be aware of. This is your chance to ask an expert. So 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well. If you want to text us like Terry did, it's 236-330-2623, 236-330-2623. We're watching your emails as well at bctoday@cbc.ca. And you touched on this a little bit just a few moments ago, Tiana. What are the root causes? What makes someone vulnerable to online harms?
Yeah, so one of those pieces which we've talked about is language, the language that we use. The other piece is that our ability to experience a gut feeling, which is a physiological response to dangerous energy, is harder to feel and experience over the screen. And so we have to really understand the specific red flags that would give us that gut feeling. So things like an unhealthy age difference, somebody who's 5 years or older than you, somebody offering you things, or love bombing, switching platforms. So that's definitely another piece. And the last piece also is that when we're online, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're trying to get our needs met. And so a huge element of that risk is being aware of what needs am I trying to get met online? Does social media give me self-esteem? Am I looking for connection, right, friendship, belonging? And then being mindful of making sure that somebody is not offering to meet that, in place of a healthy alternative.
So what does that mean then? Because if that is what you're seeking, how do you avoid someone who's offering to meet that need?
Absolutely. So the first piece is being aware of the needs that you have, and we all have these needs, right? And the second piece is being aware that if somebody is offering, let's say, so the love bombing, for example, is a play on the need for self-esteem. So if you have somebody that's doing that in a way that's not typical of somebody that you trust and have a relationship with, then that's a red flag. And if you're still wanting that need, there are healthy and safe methods to meet that need. And I think that's where it's our role as parents, as caregivers, as educators who know the children that we work with and that we communicate with and that we have. What do our kids need? And implementing those needs for them beforehand, before any form of exploitation.
I guess part of that might also be establishing that support network, whether it's other friends who can say, hey, that doesn't seem right, even though it feels good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that support network, even if it's not, using you as a parent, if it's a trusted adult that you have that you can recommend to them. And absolutely. And just putting out there that if you ever have questions, talk to somebody about it, ask someone. And I think a really important piece that we haven't touched on, but I definitely want to suggest to parents, is making sure that you're not letting your kids believe that there will be a punitive consequence if they make a mistake online. Because what we see when we go and give presentations is there are so many kids who have been exploited and haven't told anybody and have held on to this because of the fear of their technology being taken away. So I think that we have to have more conversations with our kids as well, that we won't be judging them, there won't be shame, and there won't be punitive.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm going to squeeze in Day, who's just called us, actually from Toronto. Hi, Day. This is something that your family has been facing?
Hi, yes. Actually, my son is turning 15, and this for the third time, we've noticed there's some grooming going on online through Discord and Roblox. And this will be the third intervention. The first one, I think, was when it was around 10. The second, 12. The person
Oh,
had actually
dear.
been reported to the police, and the police were talking to him, discussing it with him to explain that it was an adult that he was talking with, not a little girl his age.
How have you
Because he
stopped
was,
this? I'm sorry to jump in, Day. I just have a
yeah.
minute. How have you stopped this?
In the first two times, the internet, the phone was taken away completely. The first time wasn't a phone; it was a computer. It was taken away completely. We hadn't exactly gone into that whole online schooling yet, so it was pretty easy to just keep him off from online, and he was content with watching TV, etc. The second time, a phone was taken away, and online was heavily monitored because we were online schooling at that point. And so it was heavily monitored, and he did not have access to it except for when he was in school.
Okay.
This time, he's 14, and he has like a free number, so it's only Wi-Fi accessible.
Okay.
And so it's when he's playing games, I noticed that we caught the conversation
And
with
limiting
the two other
it.
adults. Yeah.
Day, I'm so sorry to jump in. I just have a minute. I want to make sure that Tiana is able to respond and give you some guidance moving forward, okay? Thank you so much, and I'm glad you've been able to put a stop to it for now. All the best to you and your son. Any advice in the last minute we have?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is looking at what is it that is creating that vulnerability and openness of your son to continue those kind of conversations. Is it the lack of knowledge of when to call it, a boundary, or when to call something a red flag? Is it the lack of knowing what to do when that happens? And also, is it just wanting to connect with people and wanting a safe peer group? Because if that's the case, there are so many resources that we can reach out to. There's boys and girls clubs, there's community centers, and things like that.
So get him active and finding ways to fulfill those needs.
Absolutely.
support.
Yeah. And having explicit conversations about the things that you feel are dangerous, and putting it to him to talk about his.
Thank you so much. That's Tiana Sharifi.